You know what's better than one mock draft? Two mock drafts. That's what we're doing today. Back to back. Hayden's up first. I'm second. And we have no freaking clue what the person is going to bring to the table today. We haven't done one of these, in about a week. And I feel like the NFL insider analyst game has been on point over the last week, last 7 days with a lot of buzz. So I'm excited for this.
Yeah, lots of nuggets. We're starting to see some off-field concerns pop up. We're seeing some injury clarification, and then also just some like the insiders for teams versus the insiders across the entire landscape. We have to kind of pick which side of the party we're going to go with. And on top of that, I got some trades in this one to make it even more predictable. All right, good.
Yep. Same. Hopefully not the same ones because that would be a bit of a buzzkill. I guarantee you we don't. We're about 10 days away from the NFL draft. Right now on the channel, we have 32 prospect profiles, individual 8 to 10 to 12-minute videos on all the wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, quarterbacks. So if you like what we're talking about here, you'll definitely like those individual ones. They are the perfect way to prepare and get ready for the first round through the 7th round of the NFL draft. All right, let's do this, man. You're up first. We can buzz by the number 1 pick with the Las Vegas Raiders. The only question I have is, who do you expect to start week 1, Kirk Cousins or Fernando Mendoza?
I mean, if Tom Brady's calling the shots and Tom Brady wants him to sit, then he's probably going to sit. I think the better question would be like week 4. Is it like, when are we going to actually see Fernando Mendoza play? I think that they like legitimately do want Fernando Mendoza to sit like half the year.
No, they definitely do. I mean, Tom Brady has said it helped him, and then you hear that all the way down from Clint Kubiak saying that to Spy Tech saying that at the exact same time. I think the rest of the live mock drafts that we do, we should spend this number 1 overall pick just shouting out the chat. All right. So Jackie Moon, let's go. It's about that time. Here we go. Alex is oiled up. Adam, this is dangerous, but you are live oiling. Yes, sir. Clued, I hope to hear some Debo comps. We'll see. We'll see, guys. All right. This is where it gets interesting. There's been some differing opinions on number 2. Who do you have to the Jets?
Yeah, so this is one where I was kind of alluding to where it's the team insiders, which have been, it's Arvell Reese, and then the national insiders have been saying it's more David Bailey. I think this is a true toss-up. Both of them fit the defense, so there's not really that many clues. We've heard Aaron Glenn talk about the kind of the hybridness that he wants, which would signal Arvell Reese. They also just want juice, which would be David Bailey. Most of my mock drafts have been Arvell Reese, so I'm going to switch it up, and I'm going to go with David Bailey. A lot more David Bailey mock drafts over on Underdog Mock Draft for the last 48 days that we saw this entire draft season.
I know you tune into a whole bunch of, let's say, NFL and draft podcasts around this time. What has been the reasoning from those national people that David Bailey might be the pick over Arvell Reese at number 2?
It just doesn't require any imagination. You've watched David Bailey just as like a wide 9 pass rusher, just get up the field, and that's easy to imagine. Where with Arvell Reese, there's just more questions of exactly where he's going to play. I don't have those questions because I just watched Matt Patricia figure this out. You know, a Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator. He's also amazing. They also just don't have any long-term solutions at off-ball linebacker, and they can walk him up, and this is kind of the 3-4 hybrid modern defense. So I do think that Arvell Reese still is a perfect pick for the Jets. I do think this is pretty much a 50-50 proposition at this point, though.
I guess my point, I know you have John Ledyard on the program tomorrow, and we'll post your discussion with him about the pass rushers. Like with David Bailey, is this a safe player? You know, like we don't have a full athletic testing tree from him. The run defense, I think, was questionable on top of it. He's definitely a point A to point B pass rusher, and he's going to rack up some sacks and some pressures and some tackles for loss with that stuff. But with Arvell Reese, I'll add that if he doesn't work out as a true edge rusher, you also have one of these hybrid players who could immediately be, you know, playing next to Demario Davis, because I'm sure the Jets don't love what Jamie Sherwood has put out in the contract that he is on. Like, that is someone that you can seriously try out at 2 spots, and he might be awesome at both or great at 1.
Yeah, he's going to be awesome at both. I think he's that rare of a prospect. If I was picking for the Jets, I would take Arvell Reese. I think the David Bailey stuff, it's easy to get excited about the just burst off the ball, and he's going to be like a threat for 10 plus sacks in a season. I do think he's a little bit undersized. Maybe doesn't have quite as much bend as some of the other guys that typically go in this range. Still a hell of a football player. I think either one would work here. I would just prefer Arvell Reese. He feels a lot more unique.
Okay, is Monty Austin-Fort's phone ringing off the hook with Arvell Reese on the board at number 3 with the Arizona Cardinals?
It is, but not as much as you'd think, because just there's not like really crazy high end prospects here. So I'm going to have them sit and pick. I will take Arvell Reese here. And the question becomes, are Cardinals fans too nervous about this hybrid linebacker? Because they're 0 for a million on this player. I think
Steve Keim, yes.
Yes, but the whole fan base is concerned here. I will just argue that Arvell Reese is not that crazy of a hybrid player because like a walked up edge rusher, like a stand up edge rusher versus an off ball guy walking up to the line of scrimmage, it's not all that different here. And we just watched him be awesome at both of them. The Cardinals off ball linebacker room is a work in progress. They actually have a lot of depth at edge rusher, assuming Josh Sweat's going to be on the roster. They've invested a bunch into the secondary. It's really the off-ball linebacker spot. I wanted to go with the right tackle. I just don't think that the league views the right tackles this good. Malinois and Spencer Fanu, some believe that they're guards, and I think that there's some real truth to that. In a perfect world, they would trade down and draft one of the right tackles. That would require a team wanting to trade up to number 3, so we'll see.
Maybe we'll talk about the trade scenarios when we get to my mock draft after this one. Again, back to back here. So hit that subscribe button as you're watching. All right, number 4, the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, so I've been reading Easton Freeze, who covers the Titans, and he said after the owners' meeting, it's definitely going to be David Bailey or Arvell Reese if they fall, and if they're not going to fall, it's going to be Jeremiah Love, and that's just what everyone's been mocking. That's what I will do here. It's not what I would do if I was the Tennessee Titans, but he has the highest grade of all of the players available. They do need a long-term left tackle. Unfortunately, Malinois and Fonda, the consensus top tackles, are right tackle options. They could go Sonny Styles and try to do the Robert Saleh, Fred Warner thing, but they have 2 capable linebackers at play. And then with Ruben Bain off the field stuff, not quite as much like juice that Robert Saleh looks for. I do think best player available is what they would say at the podium.
Will this receive a D grade from you if it happens after the social video you posted that the NFL will not be drafting Jeremiah Love in the top 5?
I wouldn't love the pick. Yeah, but D.
Okay. I've got more to say on this one when we get to my mock. Okay. That brings us to number 5 in the New York Giants. This one has been all over the place over the last few weeks. We know that DJ went on Peter Schrager's podcast and they both brought up offensive tackles, and that's despite the re-signing of Jermaine Illuminor.
Right.
Where are you thinking that this new Giants brass might go?
Well, I'm assuming Harbaugh's calling all the shots here. He keeps saying trenches, and then he also says they have to stop the run. So that could be Malinois or Spencer Fanu, where they play him at right guard and then eventually kick out to right tackle, or maybe even just stay at guard. That also could mean Sonny Styles, who's actually going to be my pick here. The linebacker room was such a disaster this last season, and they could not stop the run. They've obviously are going to try to retain Dexter Lawrence. They've got all the edge guys that they need. They've invested a lot into the secondary over the last couple off seasons. The linebacker spot is the sore spot. Sonny Styles, I think, grades out well enough to take an off-ball linebacker this high. The hopes would be that he would turn into a Fred Warner type of player in coverage because he's got crazy instincts for somebody that's so new to the position. And then this is also what Ian O'Connor, the long-term columnist, who was all over the Harbaugh stuff. I mean, like, he knew what meals they were eating at these interviews.
You're not wrong. That is not hyperbole. He actually did talk about the meals.
Yeah, there's like eggplant parm on the side and stuff. Yeah, if he knows that those details, he was the one that said if he was putting $20 on this, it would be Sonny Styles. I think everything about this lines up.
Just to go through that Ian O'Connor quote from Harbaugh, we want the run stoned. If they run the ball 4 or 5 yards, that is the end of the world. That's a disaster. If it breaks out past that, we can't even breathe. Yeah. We want the run stopped.
Yeah. Sonny Styles is good at stopping the run, man. I don't know what else to say.
All right. That brings us to number 6 and the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, so they have 2 first-round picks here. They need a left tackle and wide receiver mostly. So you kind of play in that game. Is it going to be the left tackle and then use 24 for a wide receiver? I think just looking at the consensus rankings in general, I think Carnell Tate just grades out way higher than the left tackles that are available. That'd be like Monroe Freeland, Caden Proctor, who's got a little bit of buzz. Freeland definitely has a lot of buzz. And then I would even say Max Iheanacho could play some left tackle, just not at 6th overall. Carnell Tate is the guy that's typically picked in this range. He'd be an awesome fit with, Harold Fannin underneath, Jerry Jeudy doing whatever Jerry Jeudy does, and then Carnell Tate establishing himself as the alpha in the wide receiver room.
As we go along, can you slightly scroll up so you can show up Yeah, so you can show who has been taken. Awesome. Yeah, Cardinals Tate's an interesting one here with the Browns. I mean, I think he's very different than any other wide receiver that's on that team. Um, you know, the Browns, it certainly seems like everyone is projecting them offensive line and wide receiver with their opening two selections, but they might have to be the first team to pick the first at each of those positions. And so, which one do they value more? And do they think there's like a clear top talent of that grouping?
Yep. And then I also say they have a bunch of picks in general, so they can maneuver around the board. That might be a hint of what's happening at 24.
Okay. Well, that brings us to the Washington Commanders at number 7. They're going through some drastic changes. New offensive coordinator in David Blau, new defensive coordinator in Durante Jones. Dan Quinn, everyone's like citing what his scheme is. It's going to drastically change with Durante Jones at the helm and calling the shots. And then in offense, we know the David Blau to Cliff Kingsbury dynamic is very different. So which side might the Washington Commanders go on at number 7?
We might have to wait for the Commanders pick just because Jeremiah Love is off the board. And if you're looking around here, there's just not that many draft picks the Commanders have. They don't have a second round pick or a fourth round pick. I'm looking at other teams that have multiple first round picks that would match up with the best available players. And we do this all the time with the Cowboys trading up. Why not the Dolphins here? So I think if we press some buttons around here, let's see, a future or a third rounder. And then, yeah, this doesn't take that much. Another fourth rounder here. So the Commanders would move down. They would get 11th overall, 75th overall, and 130th overall. That's an even trade. And then the Miami Dolphins would stay in town. Francis Mauanoa would be the right guard, potential right tackle versus Austin Jackson here. The Packers, which is obviously the Miami Dolphins at this point, they always value versatility, which I think Mauanoa can play guard or tackle, and they always value offensive line over everything else. So if Mauanoa falls here, which he has, I do think this is the range he would go for.
Yeah, Packers have always valued the trenches, and the Packers have always valued like tackles that can also play guard, or they can just play tackle, you know?
Yep.
And so Mauanoa doing that. And like you said, moving back 4 spots there for the Commanders, who I think only have 2 picks in the top 4 rounds.
Yep.
Then they get a third and a fourth on top of that, just to move back 4 spots.
And there is a difference between like 11th and 12th overall. If you kind of map things out on the positions that they need, the Commanders would maybe want to stay ahead of the Cowboys at 11.
Question: if Jeremiah Love is there at number 7, or what other players could you see the Washington Commanders sticking and picking instead of trading out?
I think it'd be these 3. Bailey, Reese, and Love would be the guys I think probably at the top of their list. I think maybe they can use someone like Sonny Styles, but they invested into that position this offseason. Carnell Tate would be another interesting one as well. So yeah, they could stay and pick, but I just think most teams that only have 2 picks in the top 4 rounds typically trade down, especially when you're not picking inside the top 5. We're not talking about like true blue chip players that they're not taking right here.
Okay. That brings us to number 8 and the Kellen Moore, Tyler Shuck led New Orleans Saints. The direction that they go in is where?
All right, so this is where I have Ruben Bain sliding into, and obviously we have to talk about what just happened. The report surfaced that he was in a car accident, somebody was killed. Obviously, no charges were pressed, and it doesn't sound like the family of the victim wants to do anything with it. I think it's a very tragic situation, and at the same time, I don't think that's going to impact Ruben Bain's draft stock. He's not going to get suspended because this happened before the NFL draft. I do think that he was already in this kind of 8 to 12-ish range. I don't think anything really has happened here. He's got the shorter arms. I think that's the primary reason why he's falling. We don't have athletic testing either, so I do think this is the sweet spot, but he's just such a good scheme fit for the New Orleans Saints, and they can attack wide receiver in round 2.
It's a fascinating one. Ollie Connolly had the report. Then every single draft analyst said, oh, well, we've had this too.
Why didn't they tweet it then?
I think multiple factors are going on. It is a bit annoying when someone has, let's say, the guts or the willingness to put something like that out there and do, the journalistic efforts and go through police reports and go through sources and cite things. And then everyone else just piles on and says, oh, we had this too, so it's not a big deal. And it probably might not be a big deal, when we go to NFL teams, or all 32 organizations are very different and want to interpret this differently and have different interviews and conversations with Ruben Bain. I will say, I believe his draft position higher or lower right now, if you look at it, over 8.5. So that's one spot after this one is minus 325. Wow. So even this is much earlier than what the markets are suggesting right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys the Saints could be taking here. I think Delane would be an option. Caleb Downs is an option. Any of the wide receivers, I think all would make sense for the Saints. I will say they just need another edge rusher next to Chase Young. I think that Ruben Bain would be excellent at it.
Can you collapse the Kansas City Chiefs for a moment? And let's have an exercise here. What is the absolute latest, or what is the absolute furthest Ruben Bain can fall on draft day? What's his floor?
That's an impossible game with the NFL draft. I will say realistically, it's the Cowboys at 12. They just need edge help. So I think that the teams most likely in play would be the Saints, the Bengals, the Commanders, the Cowboys, I think are all the teams. And then the Chiefs would be interesting because they have the history with all of the driving related offenses recently. So would they be willing to take him on? He would be an excellent fit for them as well. I just think that there's a drop off in talent at a certain point, and all these teams need edge rushers.
I would say Ravens at 14. That's the absolute latest. He would stay on the board. They, need a long-term edge partner.
Yep.
And he certainly would fit their play style. Let's put it that way. By the way, the tool that we're using right now is totally free to all of you. Hayden built it. It is underdogmockdraft.com. It is in the link in the description down below. There's a big board on there. You can do team-specific 7-round mock drafts. You can do first 2-round mock drafts on here. It's a fantastic resource, and you'll see at the end, it tells you where you reached, where you didn't, where the consensus is, where it's not, all that good stuff. So again, that is underdogmockdraft.com. What, about 5,000 have been submitted at this point?
Hey, 9,000. We're about to hit 10,000. Wow. And I think if you guys do hit 10,000, we might have some prizes for these mock draft leaderboards. So get them in there now, and then hopefully I can bug the marketing team enough to give us some free prizes.
All right. And since we're talking about 10,000 in the mock draft, at some point we want to hit 200,000 subscribers here on this channel. We will not get there before draft day, but you can help us do that by totally free hitting that subscribe button down below and checking out a video after this one, any of the 32 prospect profiles with plenty more, at least 10 more on the way. All right, back to the Chiefs, back to number 9. Where is this team going?
Okay, so this is a difficult one because they have some clear needs, and it kind of lines up with all the best player availables. They obviously need a corner, which means Mansour Delane would be an option. They have readjusted their safety room, which means Caleb Downs could be an option. They definitely could use any of these wide receivers. I think Spencer Fano still does make a lot of sense. I know that Chiefs fans are telling me it's definitely not going to be an offensive tackle, and I think there is some truth to that, just looking at the team needs. But Spencer Fano, there's a connection to Andy Reid from Utah. And on top of that, Spencer Fano is just an awesome prospect. And Andy Reid's entire history, if you guys zoom out a little bit, is building through the trenches. So Spencer Fano could compete at right tackle immediately. He has clean enough feet where there's a chance he can kick over to left tackle if they don't trust Josh Simmons long term. And he can kick into guard and play center and all that type of stuff. So I just think he's like a classic Andy Reid player. And they have 2 picks at 29 and 40 where there's a lot of depth at corner, and there's a lot of depth at edge rusher in those spots as well. So I do think that Spencer Fano is on the table for the Chiefs, even though Twitter disagrees.
Yeah, the Chiefs getting frisky and trading up for one of the top edge rushers, namely Arvell Reese or Bailey, or even Ruben Bain, potentially if he falls to this spot, is, I think, an interesting one. The Chiefs, I mean, we opened this cycle talking about offensive tackle for them, right? And we know that they signed the, 49ers 6 offensive linemen last year, and he played at right tackle. I think you can argue with yourself if it was very good. And when you say, though, that the Chiefs are going to take an offensive tackle at number 9, the shorts is definitely yell at you. So Hayden, just get ready for your mentions here.
Yeah, well, hopefully they don't find it.
Okay. But the closer we get, like exactly what you said, Andy Reid, tackles matter. Offensive linemen matter. Like, go back to the Philadelphia Eagles days, go to what they are doing here with the Kansas City Chiefs. And having like a long-term pairing at left tackle and right tackle with Simmons in this would be quite good.
Yeah. And you also get out in space, and like that's a huge part of the Andy Reid offense. So totally. I think it's just a great fit.
Okay. Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock at number 10.
Okay, I think they make it pretty easy for us just because they need defensive backs, and there's defensive backs at the top of the queue. I'll go with Mansour Delane breaking ties for positional value. I do think that Jermod McCoy is very much in this range. So I think if Ruben Bain doesn't fall to them, they would look to the secondary. I think it's a toss up between McCoy, Downs, and Mansour Delane. I'll stick with Mansour Delane just after the one weakness on his profile was just exactly how fast he was, and then he had like what a 4.38 40 times. So I would be pretty surprised if Delane falls much further than this.
Well, then you might be surprised at the second mock draft coming at you after this
Okay.
one. We are very, very different here from around like 6 through 10 so far. So I'm
Good.
excited for that conversation. Here we go. Number 11, the Washington Commanders, after their trade back with the Miami Dolphins and picking up a third and a fourth round pick, are on the clock.
Okay. I think that one of the biggest team needs is actually on the interior offensive line. And I went back and watched Vega Ione again, and there's just not many flaws to his game. Like, he is very physical in the run game. He can get after it in pass protection as well, just because he's like so dense and he's very smart. They would weaponize him by like lining him up at like fullback and tight end and get him on the move. Man, I just think that Vega Ione would be kind of like the missing ingredient after replacing a lot of their interior players recently. They just got Connerly at right tackle. They obviously have the huge investment at left tackle. They want to be able to run the ball and obviously protect Jaden Daniels. And they spent all of their resources recently on defense. I think that Vega Ione, after trading down, getting some assets, I think that this is the range for him. And I do think that he's a good pick for the Commanders. And I even think if they couldn't get a trade partner, I wouldn't even be shocked if Vega Ione is like the surprise guy to go inside the top 10.
Did we talk about this? Because I was going to save my notes, and there's been a little chatter that the Washington Commanders could be taking an offensive lineman at number 7, and the name that I heard was Vega. And this is why I tweeted out a couple days ago. I took Vega in the top 10 at plus 900. Now, this would be right outside of it. I would start crying just a little bit. But Chris Paul played that spot for them last year. They waited through all of free agency and brought him back on a minimal deal, right? And what I've heard, and I'll just go through the spiel now. What I have heard is that so many of these teams just do not like this draft, okay? And they just want to hit doubles. They just want solid starters for a really long time. If you go through the beast from Dane Brugler, who, by the way, is going to be on the program here on Thursday, if that's not enough for a subscription, I don't know what is. It's totally free to all of you. Everything about Vega, teams are in love with. And so you just make an offensive line your strength of your team with Connerly at right tackle, obviously Tunsil. Cosme, if he is healthy, is a very good guard on top of that. Then you have Ione in Vega, I should say, at the left guard spot. And you are freaking set up.
You're set.
And I think people, all of you, might be a bit surprised by the run of offensive linemen earlier than you're expecting.
Yep, I agree. It's a down class, and these guys are high floor prospects.
Okay, number 12 in the Dallas Cowboys.
They're just hoping for a defensive player to fall. That player is Caleb Downs. Obviously, Jermod McCoy would be in the mix. He is healthy off of the ACL tear for the most part, but they have a history of drafting guys, and there's also been some comments that they don't want to do that again. So Caleb Downs falling to 12 does line up with what the history of just safeties in the draft. They fall, 4 or 5 spots off of where the consensus rankers have him because it's just a position that doesn't make a whole lot of money. Caleb Downs, we know he's excellent. The Cowboys would be able to play him in the back half. They have Jalen Thompson from the free agency, but this is like a best player available, and I think that's a great pick for the Dallas Cowboys.
I mean, it would line up. They don't have to trade up. They can just get him here. They did pay Jalen Thompson quite a bit, but Malik Hooker, I think, is on like a reworked 1-year deal, is 30 years of age on top of that. And Downs can be weaponized. And I'll talk about it with mine, but this defensive coordinator coming from the Eagles, everything is about the spine, right? And Caleb Downs, pretty dang good on the spine of a defense.
Yes, he is.
Okay, LA Rams at 13. We all listen to Peter Schrager's show, and we know he's also previously had multiple seasons of a show with Sean McVay, and he mentioned Mekhi Lemon. Is this just going to be one of those picks that outside of the top 10 is kind of set in stone until we hear different?
It is what I have. I do think that Casey Concepcion would be the dark horse here just because he's really dang good. And everybody that I talk to that looks at these wide receivers, they like Casey Concepcion. So I'm starting to do the math that he might just go a lot higher. Plus, he's got the special teams ability that the Rams are looking for. Mekhi Lemon would be closer to like the Cooper Kupp mold of things as a slot guy. I do think they want a long-term X receiver. I'm not sure if they have that on the menu right now. So I do think that Mekhi Lemon's the most like proven, healthy, productive player, kind of checking all the boxes. And I think that some teams kind of feel iffy with the character stuff, but not like it doesn't translate to the football field. He's staying out of trouble. For all we know, he's just kind of an interesting cat. I don't think that teams necessarily care about that too much.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like the smartest player on the field. His feel for zone, his spacing, how he like bounces off contact, it totally fits what this offense wants to do. I will add, they probably aren't in love with Puka Nakua's offseason. I mean, what is going on there? And then they even mentioned, most likely linked with the AJ Brown stuff, that Devontae Adams, they were shopping him. Correct. So just everything is pointing to this is a window to win immediately. All the Ty Simpson stuff, no, sir, not at 13. And how do you get over the hump with not even a pick that is your own via the Atlanta Falcons? You take a really good pass catcher and have a trio that is freaking awesome that you can also bounce out of and run 13 personnel stuff and just keep defenses on their heels.
Yeah, and I think the tiebreaker, I think that Mekhi Lemon could play in 2 wide receiver sets if something happened to either one of the top guys. They just have no depth at receiver. If something happens to one of their top 2 guys, which, by the way, Puka and Devontae Adams are always battling through something, they just don't have another answer. I think that's how their Super Bowl odds would decrease the fastest, aside from Matthew Stafford's injury. It would just be, now Puka's out. We're relying on, 34-year-old Devontae Adams and nobody else? That's dangerous.
Right. And, especially because Tutu Atwell is a starting wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins now.
Yeah, big deal. It's a big deal.
Okay, Baltimore Ravens at 14.
Okay, this is where I have Jermod McCoy. I think we've talked about this previously. Corner is just the underrated need for the Baltimore Ravens. He would be an outside corner. I just really like the fit because he was able to test and did run a 4.4 flat coming off the torn ACL. I think that feels more comfortable for Jermod McCoy to go in this range. Daniel Jeremiah has alluded to a lot of teams have McCoy ranked ahead of Mansour Delane. It's probably a toss-up for which one actually goes first. I think they're kind of different players to me a little bit, but Jermod McCoy's just kind of aggressiveness does line up with the Baltimore Ravens play style.
I might have him as the cornerback 1 in the next mock draft, so we'll save that conversation until then. All right, Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 15. This is, I think, like a bit of a pivot position when we get here, a crossroads moment for round 1, because Jason Light, I think it's fair to say now, shocked everyone last year when it was Emeka Egbuka. He has a fantastic record of draft picks over recent years. And I think they have some obvious needs, but does the board fit their obvious needs right now?
Well, everyone mocks an edge rusher because they need an edge rusher. I just want to make sure that everyone knows it's a very particular type of edge rusher. They play a 3-4 defense. They need like an outside speed rusher type. And I see Keldrick Falk mocked there a lot. I asked John Ledyard, who is an edge expert and also covers the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Nobody would know this better than John. He said it makes no sense that we should stop doing that. So Akeem Messidor or Cassius Howell, somebody crazy like that would make more sense. I think just looking at the board here, I like to press the trade button a lot more often. So we've done this one before. We'll have to get creative with the actual terms here, but the Browns come up from 24th overall, trade away 24th, 70th and 107th overall. I think that makes more sense for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where they would be reaching on a guy if they stayed pat. And then for the Browns side of this, they need a left tackle. Monroe Freeling, I think, is the top left tackle in the draft class. I thought his last 4 or 5 games of the season were excellent, and the way he moves is just awesome. He has some mental reps that he loses because he's so inexperienced, but the character is off the chart. So I do think that Monroe Freeling, this is the sweet spot for him. I think the Browns would not be able to get him at 24 overall. Call the phones. They have plenty of picks. Let's get it done.
Yeah, I think the Browns could easily trade out of number 6, or they could trade up from 24. It feels like I would be surprised if they stick at both those spots and if they're not moving around, either accumulating picks or being more aggressive with their second one, because their needs kind of, I think, fit perfectly from that 13 to 20-ish range. And so Monroe Freeling in this spot makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, the other name, just quickly on the Bucs, John Ledyard mentioned was Malachi Lawrence. Just juice off the ball, 253 pounds. It's the exact type of profile. And by the way, we're doing edge rankings for the podcast. Malachi Lawrence, number 1 for John Ledyard.
Well, hey, I mean, we shouldn't pat ourselves on the back because it probably won't happen. But I feel like a couple weeks ago on this mock draft machine, we had Casey Concepcion and Malachi Lawrence higher than anyone else. And look what's happening. I mean, I got Malachi Lawrence, if I can go back, plus 225 to be a first-round pick on April 2nd. So that guy better be a first-round pick.
By the way, if you press the scout button on this profile, you can see the range that they're expected to go to. You'll see some of my comps there. I have videos on these guys. We both do, and then my scouting report, rankings, combine stuff. So all of my written reports in the top 100 are on here, and I have Malachi Lawrence as my 18th overall player. I think he's going to be a beast.
Okay, that brings us to the Indianapolis Colts. Excuse me, the New York Jets. Sorry about that, Colts fans. And Chris Ballard.
Yikes.
At number 16, they're back on the clock after taking David Bailey at number 2.
I'm going to give what the Jets fans want. They want Jordan Tyson. I think it's a little bit dancy at the line with Adonai Mitchell and obviously with Garrett Wilson already on the table. But if that's what they like, that's what they like. So they
6-step drop backs here.
Yep. We'll see, man. But obviously he has a huge ceiling if he puts the whole thing together. The production profile is off the charts. He does have really acrobatic catches. He does have a lot of separation underneath when he's not getting jammed at the line of scrimmage. I think he has kind of honed in his craft, but that's why you have Garrett Wilson as the one, and then you kind of bring Jordan Tyson along here. So if the second pick we know is going to be defensive player, I wouldn't be surprised if the second pick is going to be an offensive player.
It's been a lot of interesting buzz on that wide receiver after Carnell Tate. Like, I'm even seeing Omar Cooper Jr.'s name mentioned as the wide receiver too. I think it can be difficult for us to kind of separate our brains, which we liked Omar Cooper, but man, like 16 for me would be super rich.
Yes, I agree with that. I just don't see him in that caliber of player. So I wouldn't be surprised if they liked Omar Cooper, but they might like him with their second round picks. So I just think it's too rich for my blood.
Yeah. Maybe they would move back from 16 and they'd be able to get him there. But, and you know, he does bring a bit of a different skill set in terms of yards after the catch. We know his missed tackles forced and yak stuff is awesome. But like, I think Casey Concepcion is pretty awesome there too.
Yes.
It's just again difficult for me because I just prefer Casey Concepcion as a player.
I completely
I know a lot
agree.
of people disagree. 17 in the Detroit Lions.
So this is one where there's been a lot of buzz recently for Caden Proctor, and I think it makes sense. Caden Proctor was a combine winner because he's playing at 352 instead of close to 400. It's a much more sustainable weight for him. He made a lot of mistakes on his college tape, but the way that he can explode out of his stance at that size is ridiculous. And I think more times than not, these 5-star pedigree players get drafted in terms of their flashes more so than their clear weaknesses. And I think that he will be a top 20 pick. It'll be interesting to see if Caden Proctor would play the left side or the right side, because Penei Sewell, who's a much better version of what Caden Proctor is, he could play left tackle. Obviously, they've mentioned they want to move him there, but Caden Proctor was a left tackle, so they'd have to figure that one out. But I do think just like in terms of just like the nasty physicality, run downhill rushing style, I think for Caden Proctor, all of it checks those boxes.
I think it was a really smart move coming out publicly and saying that Penei Sewell is going to move to left tackle because he might not. Or teams believe you and they don't think you're looking at these left tackles and it's only right tackles that you're looking at, you know? Or you can say that and then you get to OTAs and stuff behind closed doors and you're like, actually, it's not working out for Caden Proctor at right tackle. So we're just going to go back and have him play left tackle, you know, or all that stuff. So it's, I think it was kind of smart to reveal that information for all these teams that are so secretive about that stuff too.
My last note for the Lions, Max Ionasher also makes a ton of sense for them. He has left tackle or right tackle versatility because he can get out of his stance like an absolute legend. And he's so new to the position that if you told him, hey, you got to go learn left tackle, he's so raw that you're going to have to develop him either way. That I think would be something worth taking on. And I think a lot of the offensive tackle experts out there, the Tices, the dad and Nate, both really like the Arizona State kid. And I tend to agree.
I can see Brad Holmes loving that dude.
Oh yeah.
Athletic, new to the position, a growing player, wants to rough you up, all that type of stuff. Okay, Minnesota Vikings. Hey, I see Dylan Thieneman on the board. This is like 95%. Are you going to be a 95%er or are you going to be, you know, different than everyone else?
So on these little player cards, I have like the pick range, like the likely pick range based off of what you guys submit on these mock drafts. And his range is 18th overall to 18th overall. That's how often you guys select him. I have no new takes for him. I want to find like a defensive tackle or somebody like that to like throw in there. There's just not anybody on the board in Thieneman's a beast, man. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, he can be part of the walk up attack. He can definitely be in the back half. They play a lot of quarters there, and I thought he was exceptional figuring all that type of stuff out, especially go back to the Purdue days. So it makes so much sense for Flores to love him.
All right, Brian T, hang on to my mock draft. I promise you, I do not have Dylan Thieneman to the Minnesota Vikings in the back-to-backs here. So I've got you covered. Look, DJ,
I'm getting booed.
I've got you, man. Hang on. We're doing a back-to-back mock draft here. I've got another one coming at you where Dylan Thieneman is not the pick to the Vikings at 18th overall. In fact, it might be a player you've never been projected and connected with. Let's put it that way.
A bunch of my next picks here are players that are not being drafted in mock drafts very often. So we're going to get spicy here. Like 4 or 5 of them.
Well, Carolina Panthers, number 19 overall.
Okay, they got on the mic and they listed off the positions that they need. Is what, like nickel corner, they need a safety, they need a tight end, and then arguably a left tackle.
Wide receiver too.
Yeah, they definitely do need that. If you kind of combine all of those players, it kind of sounds like Kenyon Sadiq, where he's just like a rocked up like weapon on offense there. So he's just a better version of what they were trying to get with JT Sanders, and this is probably the range he's going to go in. I know some people have him like rated a lot higher than this. Tight ends kind of slide from time to time. And Sadiq's just a little bit of an outlier in terms of the production and the size profile. So I think this is a good sweet spot for him.
Yeah. He brings something different to the table that they don't have, especially yards after catch opportunities too. I mean, their yak has been horrific these last few years. I could easily see it being Casey Concepcion. I'll hold my Carolina Panthers thoughts until we get there too.
I would love
All right, Dallas. This is the Micah Parsons selection from number 20.
It is. I wish I can find a Micah Parsons. I'm looking really, really into it. And the reason why they traded Micah Parsons away is because the run defense, right? So who's the best run defender here at edge rusher? It's like TJ Parker, and then it's Keldrick Falk, who's like the exact opposite of Micah Parsons. You can throw a derogatory to that. I would not pick it, but I can see the Dallas Cowboys being like, we have our interior defensive lineman. We can now set the edge with Keldrick Falk. You're not going to be able to run on us. And then Caleb Downs will clean up things behind us.
All right. Pittsburgh Steelers at 21. I'm glad our mock looks very different from like pick 5 and on. So we'll give the people a very, very different look as we go through. Okay. 21 here with the Steelers. They're another one that I think has been a bit consistent in what people have given them. So what do you think here for 21?
Yeah. So the needs I have is like quarterback. I don't think that they would do Ty Simpson after doing Kenny Pickett, like at 20th overall exactly. So this feels a little bit too close to that. Their roster is low-key pretty set to me. They do need a left guard, and Chase Bisontis is getting a lot of love here. So this would be like the earliest I think Chase Bisontis can realistically go. But I do think he kind of has the nastiness that the Steelers want to do. If you look across their entire offensive line, it's a bunch of Chase Bisontis style players. He's got good athleticism on top of that. They just don't have a ton of needs, and I just don't love the board in this range in general. So like you said, we're shooting for a bunch of doubles in this draft. That could mean a lot of offensive linemen. I would not be surprised if it's Chase Bisontis who slides in to the back half of round 1.
I mean, you're speaking my language here with this Chase Bisontis stuff. I've got some buzz for you on the Steelers again in my mock draft that I'll reveal. Hopefully people are and hopefully we're right about Chase Bisontis, and hopefully you're following me on Twitter, because on April 2nd, I put out Chase Bisontis in round 1 at plus 1,000. Double dipped that at plus 1,000. Then went back to the well at plus 600 on April 7th. So we're going to be eating good in the neighborhood if Chase Bisontis goes at least at pick 21. Oh my goodness gracious.
That would be crazy. And then obviously the Chargers, I think Chase Bisontis would be a perfect Charger as well.
Yeah. On that note, again, remember what we talked about at the top. Teams just want to be a solid 5+ year starter here with this draft class, and like offensive linemen, you're going to see them. You are going to see them in this round 1. All right, next Chargers 22.
All right, I'm not going to waste too much time here. Going over to the edge rushers, I'm picking my guy Malachi Lawrence here, who I have ranked 18th overall. A lot of people that study the position really like what he's bringing to the table here. He's just got crazy explosiveness. He's got length and he's got enough size to be a stand-up edge rusher. He would get into a 3-point stance as well. The Chargers just do not have a long-term answer at edge rusher. They brought back Khalil Mack, but that's on pretty much a 1-year deal at this point. So the Chargers definitely need interior linemen, but most of the guys that are available are not going to be round one types. I would be pretty surprised if Pregnon is. You can find that position typically third, fourth-ish rounds. It's hard to find like quality edge rushers in that range. So I think Malachi Lawrence is a riser, but for the right reasons.
Yeah, he perfectly fits the Odafe Owe replacement. I mean, that defense went to another gear when Owe came in. I talk about it all the time when, Lawrence wasn't a first rounder. And then I think the first place we projected him was 22 here to the Chargers. Chase down second phase sacks. His athleticism pops in that regard. And those are massive. Like half the sacks in the league are just from extended plays.
Yep.
And they do not, they didn't replace Odafe Owe at all.
Nothing.
So
Nothing.
This is the way to do it. That's for sure. 23 in the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right. I did an offensive line episode with Fran Duffy because I was watching like Jeff Stoutland like teach tape, like coaching clinic stuff, and Fran Duffy was interviewing him. I'm like, all right, Fran Duffy does rankings. We should get him on the channel. And I asked him specifically about the Arizona State right tackle Max Nature just because it's a really traitsy profile that they're going to have to develop. And they just did this with Jordan Mailata, who's even a bigger freakazoid than the Arizona State kid. But he played right tackle. He can learn from Lane Johnson for a year. The Eagles are typically a team that will do this thing a year early. And I got the sign off from Fran Duffy himself. So he mentioned some of the wide receivers. We already saw a lot of the wide receivers go off the board here. So they're going to invest in the trenches. And like you said, it's most likely going to be an offensive player here.
Yeah, they have to get cheaper on offense. That's where all their money, and still is, tied up. And so that's why all their early draft picks were on defense. And you already paid Jordan Davis. You're going to have to do that with Jalen Carter, Jalix Hunt, and especially when you get to Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, So you have to get cheaper on offense. And a lot of that is going to coincide with, A.J. Brown, bye-bye, and Lane Johnson at some point, bye-bye. So those are two expensive positions. Just click on wide receiver real quick because – so it was a Honicher over someone like Omar Cooper or Casey Concepcion.
I know it'd be a difficult decision, but
hey, and you're such a hater. How is Casey still on the board here?
I will say this: I will actually mock him in my final mock draft higher if I get just some positive news about the knee scope, like being all right and stuff. That's just in the back.
He's already running.
Mind.
I think a video popped up of him already running.
Maybe I missed it.
You don't have noties like I do.
I'm trying to. I'm watching like the freaking 9th safety in the class, the 14th guard. I'm trying to write out these top 100 reports.
Both Penn State running backs. I mean, time is better spent than Nicholas Singleton. Let's put it that way. No offense, Nicholas, if you're tuning in.
He's not.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 24. This is after they traded back.
Yeah, so they trade back and they drafted the guy that I was probably going to mock to him if they stayed pat, which would be Akeem Messidor. I just think that he's the type of pass rusher that they're looking for. I do think that he can fire off the edge, and that's exactly what they're trying to do. They got Vita Vea, they got 2 3-4 DNs in the Kalijah Canseys of the world. They need somebody off the edge, bring in the juice, and Akeem Messidor's best moments are that. So I do agree we should knock him over the age. We should knock him over his injury history. But if he gets signed off on both of those, you are looking at a really productive player with the correct size profile that you're talking about. And the character is apparently pretty good on top of it.
I do not have Messidor in my round one. I think if we just zoom out, this is not a round one profile. 25-year-old with foot issues.
I agree. It's a weird class, man. I don't think Chase Besantis is typically the 21st overall pick. Malachi Lawrence out of nowhere. Like, we're dealing with Max Nature didn't play football until JUCO. It's a weird class.
Yeah, but, they're young and growing into their spots, and Besantis was like a highly recruit, and Malachi Lawrence is a freak pass rusher. Nature, again, growing into the spot. We're just talking about a 25-year-old who has had surgeries on his foot and a persistent issue. Like, again, that profile to me, it might happen here. It might also happen when we get to the 49ers because it's like win now stuff. But I don't know. Like that, I would not be surprised in the least if he's a round 2 player.
Neither would I. Nothing will surprise me in this class. I will just say that he had like a 21% win rate, which was almost as good as Ruben Bain and David Bailey. So there's something to him.
25 in the Chicago Bears.
Okay, this was kind of something I just noticed from the Chicago Bears who do their mock drafts out here is just Emmanuel McNeil Warren is somebody that they pick pretty frequently. And they redid their safety room from this last offseason. So he's somebody I don't have a great feel with. Typically, like safeties kind of fall, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's the guy that kind of gets pushed down a little bit here. But he's like got a lot of top 20 love, so him falling to 25 could be the fall that he kind of deserves.
Doing a lot of these mocks, 25 of the Bears is, I think, a real difficult spot.
It's all over the place.
Maybe they'll take, a discount to trade out with like Arizona if they're looking to get their quarterback and Ty Simpson. But I think it was Daniel Jeremiah and others, and we've talked about this too. Doesn't sound like Caleb Banks is going round one. I haven't heard any positive buzz on Peter Woods over these last few weeks. So in terms of the interior defensive lineman, it's like a run stuffer in Caden McDonald.
It's Kristen Miller.
Well, there's also some Kristen Miller stuff in the Beast that you might want to check out too. Okay. So just DTs at large do not sound great right now.
Yeah, it's a bad group, that's for sure.
All right, that brings us to 26 in the Buffalo Bills.
All right, Buffalo Bills, looking at my notes. I know that I need to read up on apparently like the character or whatever you're trying to say with Kristen Miller. I just go back to the traits. He's like 325 pounds. He moves way better than that. You can see him use a long arm on occasion. I think that he plays a lot of like integrity in the run game, which is just required at the University of Georgia. So we don't have like freakazoid athletic testing right now on him, but I thought he passed the eye test on film, and defensive tackles from Georgia go round one very often. And I would not be surprised if the Buffalo Bills are trying to find somebody that can stop the run, which he can, but offers more pass rush upside than a Caden McDonald, which the upside with him is just really low.
It might not have been the Beast. I'll find the source of that. I don't want to put that on Dane's plate, so I'll have that for another mock in the future.
All right.
Yeah, I mean the Bills are another interesting team. I have them going with a different position, but they don't have that many needs, and it certainly feels like. And I could hear Brendan Bean saying, okay, the two things that stopped us from winning games last year were wide receiver. We solved that with our round 2 pick of DJ Moore, and then run stuffing and defensive tackle stability. And we solved that with Kristen Miller. We now have a Super Bowl roster.
Yep. Yeah, they do.
Okay. 27 in the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, so this is where I have Casey Concepcion going. I think he would just be an excellent fit for the 49ers. You got Mike Evans as the X receiver. You got Ricky Pearsall as kind of like a vertical, like undersized vertical player. And then I think Casey Concepcion could dance the best of the three. And I think long-term would be able to replace some of the stuff that Mike Evans is even doing down the field because he's like that good. So this is one where I disagree with where he's going with the mock drafts. I have him inside like my top 15 overall. But with the injury concern and apparently he's supposed to go somewhere in the 20s, I'll stick with that for now.
I mean, this would be an unreal landing spot.
I would draft him so early in fantasy drafts. It would be on. It would be on.
It would be on, yeah. What I have heard since 49ers signing Mike Evans is do not rule out pass catcher at all here.
They shouldn't.
Nope, they shouldn't at all. I mean, Casey Concepcion in this offense, because he has the yak ability. Go back to his NC State freshman season tape where he was averaging over 7 yards a pop as a designed ball carrier. I'm not saying he's going to get designed stuff like true running back stuff like Debo is, but it speaks to his willingness to fight through contact and finish, those receptions or carries. And I just think has an underrated skill set when it comes to that stuff. Just one of my favorite players in this draft.
Yeah, he's a baller.
All right. Houston Texans, 28.
Okay, so Blake Miller is going to be my selection here, right tackle out of Clemson. If you're a Blake Miller fan, do not listen to our show with Fran Duffy. But for the most part, Fran's kind of on the island not liking Blake Miller. But I see somebody that can move, not as well as he tested, but move enough, and then really experienced player. So we were talking about trying to hit doubles. I think Blake Miller would be a double at right tackle for them. They can move Braden Smith, who's got much shorter arms, inside. And I think it was Lance Zierlein or kind of everybody, I think even Rap Sheet said it, that when they signed Braden Smith, that he could play guard, which is what they were doing with Titus Howard. It's a weird team, but right tackle Blake Miller is simplifying this, and this is his range.
Okay, we'll keep it moving. 29, the Chiefs are back on the clock after previously taking Spencer Fano. So offensive line has been figured out. Shout out to the Schwartzes. So what other
Yes.
position might the Chiefs attack here?
So it's edge rusher, it's corner, it's receiver, the primary positions here. I'm going to lock in on corner just because he's only being drafted in round one mocks 11% of the time, according to you guys. I got this one going to Chris Johnson, just a really smooth player, good athlete. If you watch the NFL Combine, the corner to me that was standing out the most, just going through the drills, just flipping his hips, was Chris Johnson. The character is off the charts. If you read Dane Brugler's stuff on top of that, prepares. He just does not make a lot of critical mistakes. On occasion, he'll get dunked on, but they'll live with that. And this is kind of the range that Spags is looking for. Late round one, day two guys to come in, learn his system quickly, which I think Chris Johnson's got the mental capacity for that, and then just sit there and develop until they trade you for a future first round pick. So I think Chris Johnson's a perfect candidate for that.
Yeah. Again, if I can just shout out some odds that we've had over the last few weeks. Chris Johnson back on April 2nd, plus 600 to go in round one. And I almost feel like him going in round one is now more likelier than round two. Like I understand he's in this late 20s and early 30s section, but a lot of these teams need corner. I mean, the Dolphins right after this, cornerback. Seattle at 32, cornerback. So Chris Johnson to me is like a tier break of cornerback talent that I think he has odds-on favorite to be a round one selection.
So Jackie Moon in the chat, Chiefs fan, said it'd be very tough to not draft a defensive end in round one, which I do agree. I think it's probably more likely than not that they do draft one just because they have the two picks. But I will say, I think that the edge class in general is deeper. I don't think there's a ton of like premium talent, but if they're looking for guys to collapse pockets, TJ Parker, Zion Young, Gabe Yakis fit that mold. Derek Moore fits that mold. And if you want juice off of it, Romello Height, Jayshon Barham, Cassius Howell, R. Mason Thomas, these guys are in range at 40th overall. So don't discount that 40th overall. I think that there's a lot of edge rushers in the second and third round in this class. I think like the depth of the class, I think a lot of people are talking about the edge group in particular.
Did you talk about TJ Parker with John Ledyard at all?
We didn't by choice, and we made an acknowledgement of that. He just doesn't think that there's enough first step pop, and I agree with you. He's a pocket pusher, collapser type, but those guys kind of bust out, or not that they fully bust out, they just don't add that much value. And there's a lot of edge rushers that'll collapse the pocket for cheap. So we're looking for bursts, John and I know you are too, the Malachi Lawrence types. There are some guys in this range, but I think if you're just looking for a pocket collapser, 40th overall, you're going to find a couple of those guys.
Yeah, he's just really steady. TJ Parker is, and it's like, okay, is he going to be a difference maker for you on third and fourth down? Is he going to be? You create a one-on-one situation for him, and you can count on him to win it after Chris Jones gets doubled or whoever else. The answer is probably no, but like, again, is he stable? Yeah, but is that 29th overall or is that 39th overall?
Yep. Yeah. John also made the point. There's a lot of big hits at edge rusher in the NFL that come from like third, fourth round. Like
athletes draft athletes to rush the passer.
Yes.
Do it.
And that's the problem with this range is like all the athletes are kind of like the R. Mason Thomases, even if they're going to be rotational part-time guys. I think that's okay for the Chiefs spending a second round pick on that profile.
It's what we've talked about where, for months and months and months, all these edge rushers, Keldrick Falk, which is, I think, slightly different. He's like 20 years old and maybe growing into his frame and you can play him from different spots. But like TJ Parker, for example, some of the others. And then you go and watch the Malachi Lawrence's or some of the Michigan guys or R. Mason Thomas or Cassius Howell. And you're like, I have a lot more fun watching these guys rushing the passer than I do the ones that were mocked top 10, top 20, top 30.
Completely agree with that. Yeah.
All right. Miami Dolphins back on the clock at number 30 overall. Who'd they take?
I gave them Francis Mauigoa in a slight trade up to 7th.
Okay. So then back on the board, their wide receiver room is absolutely brutal.
It is.
Is that where they're going?
This is where I have Omar Cooper. And I think here's how you tie these two together. Indiana versus Miami. You're trying to establish a new culture. You got a new head coach, new GM. We're saying we got the culture guys from the two programs that have risen up the most. in the last couple years, and Omar Cooper and Francis Mauigoa. They have a clear plan for Omar Cooper in the manufactured touch department. He's got more physicality than the guys currently on their roster, like the Malik Washingtons, Tutus, Jalen Tolbert types out there. Pretty high floor player. I'm not sure if there's like the craziest ceiling on him, but you're talking about trying to hit a double at wide receiver, kind of hard to do in this range, lots of bust. I do think you're gonna get something out of Omar Cooper, and he's not a bad guy to like at least start the room with.
I like that. I mean, their wide receiver room right now is Jalen Tolbert, Tutu Atwell, Malik Washington. Now we can also say at their cornerback room,
it's bad.
You know, that's Daryl Baker, it's Storm Duck, Jason Marshall, and that's about it. So both those spots, I am very intrigued to see where this all Packer brain trust, if after taking Matthew Golden in round 1 last year, if they're going to come back and immediately take a first round wide receiver in this one, or they want to go with corner, or they want to go somewhere else.
It could easily be one of these corners as well. I will note though, we did lose Avion Terrell to the 40-yard dash. Ran like a 4.6 at 189 pounds. So I think we're chopped off at least one of the corners that I think was typically being mocked in this range.
Yeah, I'm sure this is out there by someone else too. I was told by, let's just say, someone very close to Avion Terrell that
AJ?
No, not AJ. That he like tweaked his hamstring during that first run. I guess my question is like, why? I think he ran twice. Why would you run again? But I liked Avion. I think I liked Avion Terrell watching him more than you did. I thought he was smooth.
He's smooth.
But I do wonder if now that drops him to round 2, and then that also makes him a slot corner. And I think as a slot corner, he could be freaking awesome too.
Yeah. I think he's a slot only at this point.
Interesting.
I mean, yeah, you can't be that small and run. Let's say he's ran 4.5. That's still a tough equation, but we'll see.
Okay. New England Patriots at 31.
Okay. Wouldn't love this pick, but our boss Nick Rudman, he says TJ Parker is the most likely pick for the Patriots. He kind of falls in the draft. I think this is a better range for him. Pocket pusher type, would not be the number one edge rusher on the team for a little bit, because he's got a lot of development in terms of his pass rush bag. But the long arm, collapse the pocket type, I can see Vrabel liking him. And I wanted to go Max Archer, but he's gone for him.
Gone. The Patriots are kind of like the Bears, where I'm not exactly sure who to give them once we get to 31 on the board. I think that makes them obviously a big trade out candidate on top of that, especially because the money in the previous draft picks that they've passed around the offensive line. Like you could maybe take one of those fringe offensive linemen here, but they don't exactly fit either because of the Jared Wilson moving to center, ABT at left guard, and then we know what the left tackle situation is. This from Leandrew. Elliot Wolf said that the Pats are looking for speed at edge today. So I might have an answer for you in my mock draft coming up after this one.
Yeah, Cassius Howell would be more like the Caleb on Chase on situation.
Seattle Seahawks close your mock out at 32.
Yeah, so this is the biggest need to me is cornerback after losing a lot of defensive backs this past off season. I think Colton Hood is clearly the best of the bunch. I don't think Cisse belongs in round 1. I don't think Terrell is going to go round 1. Pons would be an outlier.
I mean, Pons would be
small.
So much fun. I understand
awesome.
He is the opposite of Tariq Woolen when we come to size, but Mike McDonald and Pons, I think because of size, everyone is pushing him into the slot. We all need to have this updated conversation that actually we now see undersized corners playing on the outside. And that's where he played for the past, 3 seasons was on the outside at Indiana. And if you are going to be a very good corner, you need at that size, you need to have just like special traits. Yep. And the dude seems to have special makeup and special athleticism on top of it.
Yeah, I think I got him like 39th overall, just because you're kind of betting on an outlier. But there was more like comparisons that we're able to like find looking at the size and weight profile than I kind of gave credit. Like Jason Verrett popped up for me. So.
Jason Verrett was such a good player.
He's a beast.
Just injuries destroyed his career.
And that's the problem.
Well, but he had injuries heading into the league too.
Yeah,
on top
for
of
sure.
it.
For sure. Yeah, I love Pons. I'm rooting for him.
Okay. Show off some of the attributes that underdogmockdraft.com has after you finish one of these drafts.
So it compares your mock draft to the consensus that from everybody else's mock drafts here, and it tells you the most common pairing. So like Arvell Reese is the third most common pairing for Cardinals fans. My hottest take of this mock draft was Chase Bisontis, who's went 19 spots earlier than his mock draft. Spencer Fauna going to round one or top 10 only happens 22% of the time. I got the trade details, got one little bug that I got to figure out there. And then my sleepers, Kristen Miller, 3% of the time going round one. I got in there. Chris Johnson, only 11% of the time. We got to fix that. That's way too low. Malachi Lawrence, Max Einotcher, all the kind of the hot the names that I think are going to go into round one. So
what is the unique grade on there?
This is a 66 out of 100,
Okay.
probably because I have a bunch of most common pairs early on. But yeah, it'll grade your pick, and then most importantly, I will be grading everybody's mock drafts for accuracy on night one. So it'll take your last submission there, sign in, add your underdog user name to it, and if we get to 10,000 mock drafts submitted, I do think we will get prizes for the top 5 or so. So get in there, use it.
All right. Shall we do it all over again?
Let's do it.
All right. How about you host a little bit as we go through this? So I'll bring my mock draft machine from underdogmockdraft.com to the table. We can go through this quickly, 1 through 3, because they're actually the same exact that you have. So the Raiders taking Fernando Mendoza. I have it right now, and this is subject to change every 12 hours even. David Bailey, number 2 to the Jets after both Peter Schrager and Daniel Jeremiah heard that. Again, we had an entire conversation about this, that I'm not sure why David Bailey is considered a safer prospect from their words as Arvell Reese. That doesn't make any sense to me. But right now, Bailey and then Reese at 3 seem to be consensus.
Yeah, I see the same way with the safety thing. I think it's just like a lack of imagination that they're kind of sorting by, which maybe the Jets want to do.
Maybe it is. And look, point A to point B, we know how David Bailey's like going to get his sacks. At the same time, Arvell Reese said, I basically didn't have like a pass rush plan or real coaching for the position. And he still looked pretty dang good, and if he doesn't work out there, then you have a stalwart linebacker. And I know, Hayden, you thought his off-ball tape was sensational.
Yeah. Watch him chase down a screen, and then there's a rep against Michigan, him moving side to side with the running back out in the flats. It was like ridiculous stuff. So, yeah, great players.
All right. Number 4, late buzz that I heard here, Hayden, that I have not heard from anyone else yet. They also might go offensive lineman. Like, I understand.
I get it.
That everyone's probably sick of, oh, that's boring. You keep saying that these guys are going to go early. But like Francis Mauanoa is a name that I heard for early 4 or 5 here. And he can play guard early on and then flip out to tackle. And then we've seen JC Treader play left tackle and right tackle in his past too. So yeah, I mean, if Jeremiah Love, and that's who I have them taking, if he's not the selection, and like you're saying, David Bailey and Arvell Reese are off the board, like if they don't want to side with the running back aspect of this, don't rule out offensive lineman at number 4 overall.
I'm looking at their group. So yeah, JC Latham, which has been way too up and down at right tackle, but Austin Schlottman is their starting center. I don't know who that is. I'm going to come out and say it. I have no idea who Austin Schlottman is. That makes me almost think like, could it be Fano, where you're just like, he might play center for us this year or guard. So yeah, who knows?
I will say the center projection for Spencer Fano, he has never done that before. I understand that we got the stuff at the NFL Combine, but I don't know if we've ever seen him at center.
His movement ability and size is that.
Yeah, but then you also have to like,
I know it's
hey,
smart.
help with protections for a second-year quarterback in a whole new offense as the center on top of it.
Yes, but it's Austin Schlottman. Like, I mean, come on.
Right. No, that's definitely fair. The other latest buzz here for the Titans is, I believe Cameron Wolf last night on NFL Network said that the Titans love Jeremiah Love. Now, I don't know if he's just trying to do some alliteration and play on words with that stuff, but he did bring up that they took Marcus Mariota and Derrick Henry and that combination of a quarterback and running back, and that they might want to do the same exact thing with Cam Ward and Jeremiah Love, which to me sounds like an ownership narrative that they are kind of passing down.
This ownership, I think, is among the worst, and they seem very involved, and they're willing to listen to the wrong people and have that as like a total fact. And I can see them very plugged in, being like, Jeremiah Love, first player on everyone's big board. We have to take him.
Well, I have Jeremiah Love here with all that said. Number 5, and the New York Giants. This is where I have Francis Malinois.
Okay.
I mean, from Breer, we do want to update his medicals because he went to the recheck there. Again, this is from SI's Albert Breer. Some teams think he will need a clean out procedure, but he made it seem like it's not a big deal. This is also someone that he has played every single snap since joining the Miami Hurricanes his freshman season. So the interior offensive line for the New York Giants this offseason has gotten zero love, absolutely zero, to the point that you even bring back Evan Neal and Daniel Falale, who was tanking the Baltimore Ravens last offseason. So you can have Malinois or Fano play right guard, and then once Illuminor and his age is done, you move him out to right tackle here too.
Yeah, I think I gave him Sonny Styles, but Francis Malinois was the other guy I was really considering too. If they want to run the ball up the middle, remember they could not run the ball in the red zone. If you put Malinois at guard, you can run behind him. He's got so much power in his hands.
Number 6, and the Cleveland Browns. How about a trade?
Ooh.
Right? Daniel Jeremiah did this one, so I am copying it in a way. But how about the New York Jets not standing pat at 16? And you all, based on, and tell me, Hayden, this is the trade value chart that has been floated out there as close to what the NFL is working on right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. I will say, I think that some modern staffs might be using a different one, but I think like this is like the legacy one.
So with that in mind, you don't have to give up very much to move up to number 6 overall. Like that is pick 16, pick 33, and then pick 179. So yes, you give away one of your second round picks, but you still have 44, you still have 103, you still have 140. And most importantly, the Jets don't have to give up anything in 2027 where their entire focus is landing a quarterback. Yeah. So I understand the Browns and they're faithful. And if you're watching, I apologize. You can yell at me down in the comments below. Probably don't want to move out of number 6 with all these players on the board, but you're picking up a ton of capital, including 33rd overall, to drop back just 10 spots.
Yeah, I wouldn't like this because they need so much, but I can see the Jets doing this. I mean, the Jets disagree all the time.
Well, they took David Bailey or Oliver Reese at number 2 overall. And then why not just follow it up with Cardinals Tate, the wide receiver 1 at number 6 overall. I mean, that's a pretty dang good combo that you can sell your fan base on.
Yeah, that would be a lot of that's a lot of juice at wide receiver with Garrett Wilson underneath, whatever, calling Adonai Mitchell, and then Carnell Tate kind of being the deep threat. So that'd be a lot of fun.
And if we're playing into narratives, I mean, this is just, again, the Cleveland Browns fans hating their own franchise by saying we traded out of the pick that we could land the wide receiver 1 who also went to Ohio State. And that's kind of what the Browns brass would do to their fans here too.
Well, also like the Browns and Jets trading picks for each other, the NFL should just step in and say, neither of you guys are making this selection. Like
Chris Paulette a little
just
bit.
Done. It's over. No, neither of you guys get it.
All right. Number 7, the Commanders are on the clock. No, they're not. This is also a trade out back to back. Why don't we just trade the rest of the first round? That'll make it a fun mock draft.
That'd be crazy.
We're going to do it with the Dallas Cowboys. All right. And again, I think you'll be surprised what this takes. You have the 107 for 112, 392. In the 4th round, 112 overall. And then you send a 2027 third round pick. So that allows you to keep pick 120 for the Commanders, who we mentioned only have 2 picks in the top 4 rounds. That would then give them 12th overall, 71 overall, 92 overall, and 112 overall.
I think this is the type of move the Commanders are doing. My question would be, this is an in-division trade. Do you think that's stepping in?
Man, you set me up. Thank you for doing that, because we're going to get comments that say teams don't trade inside their own division. I think that line of thinking is outdated with more and more of these teams caring about volume of picks. All right. By the way, Dallas and Philly traded in the Micah Parsons, Devontae Smith selections. Like that was 1-to-1 that they did. Also, the Washington Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles traded in Mike Sainristil and Cooper DeJean picks. That was like 44 and 50th overall. So this has been recent. Yep. This has happened. We see it all the time with the Lions and the Vikings. At least we did with Kwesi and Brad Holmes. I mean, they trade legit individual players back and forth with TJ Hawkinson. Yeah. So I kind of think that line of thinking is no longer happening in the league.
Yeah, if the Commanders don't think there's somebody worthy of taking this pick, wouldn't you want them to give that to the
Exactly.
in division? Yeah.
So again, this would be pick 12, 92, 112, and then a 2027 third round pick for 7th overall.
Okay.
And now that the Cowboys are on the clock, they take Sonny Styles.
All right.
I think the Cowboys like really, really want to exit with a foundation of their defense and identity here. And we talked about it with the spine of this defense. This is exactly what Christian Parker wants to do. Think about the Eagles and Vic Fangio. It's all down the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Quinnen Williams, Sonny Styles, and we'll see if we followed up with another pick a bit later on.
Have you showed Skip this one? Because I tried to float this one past my boy Skip Bayless here, and he was not having it for a trade up for an off ball linebacker, but it's pretty good.
I mean, some of the best Cowboys defenses always had a great linebacker attached to them. You can all back to like Dat Nguyen days.
Oh boy,
Sonny Styles, heck of a player. All right, that brings us to the New Orleans Saints. Hey, you ready for your first curveball of the day?
Another one. I've heard a couple.
Jordan Tyson is going to be a New Orleans Saint here.
Whoa.
Now, I'm not saying it's 100% going to happen. The Saints, though, have been doing a ton of work on this wide receiver class. You see Nick Underhill every single day saying this receiver is visiting, that receiver is visiting.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm trying to like figure out outside of what Chris Olave and whoever else bring to the table, I think like the Chris Olave Jordan Tyson can be a bit like Chris Olave Garrett Wilson at Ohio State in terms of being like styles, and we create a NBA basketball starting five out there with our wide receiver room.
Yeah, I like Jordan Tyson within the first 12, 14 yards. And I think Chris Olave is the best downfield threat in the division. So I think it's great.
Now, with Tyson, I'm surprised we haven't gotten like more stuff about major knee injury and questions about that. If he does fall, it all comes back to that. Maybe that's why we haven't heard any buzz. But if he hits, he's going to hit in a big way.
Yep.
A big way. So, yeah, get more juice on offense, man.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Tyson's the pick at number 8. Number 9 and the Kansas City Chiefs. This is where I have Ruben Bain going. We already had that conversation. And I think the furthest that he falls is 14 overall to the Baltimore Ravens.
So you think even with Rashee Rice car accident, obviously Andy Reid history, it doesn't matter. Just we're rocking and rolling.
I don't think
That's
that
the
they are
NFL.
concerned
Yeah.
in the least.
I'm
I think they want to win football games.
I agree.
Yep. Okay. Ruben Bain is the pick to the Chiefs at number 9. By the way, have you heard a single thing about that edge rusher Felix that they took at like 29th overall a couple years ago?
Nope. Not a single thing.
He's a mirage. He does not really exist. Number 10 and the Cincinnati Bengals. This is where I have a corner, not a safety, not Caleb Downs. I have Jermon McCoy going to the Bengals here. You have Dax Hill, you have DJ Turner, and then you have a trio and adding Jermon McCoy to that. And I mean, those two outside spots could be like true lockdown, and that changes an entire identity of what the Bengals have been defensively over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Turner and McCoy is like two absolute freakazoid athletes running down the football field. So that would be really fun.
And I remember at Michigan, like Dax Hill played all over, you know? So I'm sure he's played outside. I know he's played inside too. So again, that trio makes a lot of sense to me, even with Caleb Downs on the board still. All right, number 11 and the Miami Dolphins. We talked about with yours. I think this Packers brass care about the trenches the most. And this is where I have Spencer Fano going and playing guard or shifting out to tackle if they want to trade like Austin Jackson for a late round pick, whatever have you. But make your mark by building up the offensive line.
Yeah, Spencer Fano would just be a perfect Miami Dolphin. I think just figure out the offensive line. Maybe you get something with Malik Willis and then figure out defense and pass catchers later on. I think that's the formula that Green Bay has always believed in.
Yeah, I keep mentioning it and how early these offensive linemen are going. It's on the channel. So after you watch this, go and watch the 10 best offensive line conversation that Hayden just had with Fran Duffy. That is on the channel. And hit subscribe while you're here. It's totally free to all of you, by the way. Got plenty more stuff coming in the next 10 days. Plus, after the draft, too. I mean, draft grades immediately after round one, and then draft grades after the draft is over on Saturday and Sunday. We've got you covered. All right. Washington Commanders. I nearly gave them Vega here. We had that conversation with you. That's been some light buzz that I've heard that their left guard spot with bringing Chris Paul back is wide open and maybe hit a double and go with Vega. But with Caleb Downs at this spot, Durante Jones is bringing some Brian Flores defense to this team. And you can get super creative and have super fun. And with, the edge rushers that you brought in free agency, namely Odafe Owe, and then have Caleb Downs kind of roaming these second and third levels, weaponize him, and have a big party out there on the defense side of the football field.
Yeah, that's what I meant when I was saying like trading down to like the 11th, 12th range is like a good spot for the Commanders. The guy that they would be drafting could easily still be on the board. So I don't think they would go much further beyond this because there's a big drop off in talent. But I think this 11, 12, 13 kind of range is right in range.
Yeah. Again, if you get in this 12 range, it could be Downs or Vega in this spot. That's awesome.
Or any of the receivers.
All right. That brings us to 13. You did it. I'm doing it. Maybe it changes in 10 days, but Mekhi Lemon is trending towards consensus. And typically I hate when players are consensus when we get to this range, because typically only like one of those definitely happen. And it's typically with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and their name is Najee Harris in round one. But like, it just fits a need. It fits where their franchise is at right now. And it just makes too much sense to move away from it at this moment.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a wide receiver here.
Now, could it be like, oh, we are showing you Mekhi Lemon, and then we're taking Casey Concepcion?
I hope. I certainly hope.
Because like we saw that with, we might be trading up for T-Mac, and maybe we were, but you also really like Colson Loveland.
Yes.
That could also be Kenyon Sadiq in this spot at the same time, despite, having 3 tight ends or 5 tight ends on the roster.
That's too many tight ends. I've ruled that.
But they also tried to trade up for Brock Bowers. Again, like this is now in the spot that you don't have to trade up for a pass catcher. And that's why I think it's a pass catcher scenario here.
Mm-hmm.
Ravens, I have them taking Kenyon Sadiq.
Wow.
I understand this isn't a Todd Monken led operation anymore on offense, but if you look at their tight end room, it is Mark Andrews, and that's it. I know you and I were stunned by the Mark Andrews extension when it happened, and Sadiq isn't Charlie Kolar, but he's definitely a plus Isaiah Likely. And having just, I think, more offensive weaponry for this team is needed. And especially for continuing the legacy of like tight ends in that system that goes from like Dennis Pitta and on down. This is definitely their type.
It is. My question to you would just be, Mansour Delane's falling here. Is there any reason for that? Just other players better fits? McCoy kind of solidifying himself? Is there a good explanation here?
Well, Mansour Delane keeps on staying on the board here for a little while. So,
oh goodness,
I don't want to be the one to say anything, but maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't.
All right,
let's put it that way. Okay, Kenyon Sadiq is the pick, and again, Ozzie Newsome is not the general manager, but he, still involved in this process. Hall of Fame tight end, Kenyon Sadiq. Next, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm going to give them Vega Ione here.
I like it. Okay.
When you think about it, Hayden, this is a connection that we just haven't seen mocked often. And I think it's because so many people are giving the Ravens Vega. But when you think about the Bucks, another offensive line suggested team to me, Ben Bredesen can be replaced at left guard.
Yep.
And Vega steps in immediately at left guard and can play at a really, really high level.
Yeah, I don't think Vega is going to last very long in this draft. So obviously I had him pretty high. You mentioned that he can go 7th overall. I would be pretty surprised if he lasts much further than like 15th overall.
From the Beast, again, Dan Brugler's on the program here on Thursday, from an NFL scout, crushed it. He's going to play in this league as long as he wants, competes from snap to whistle, and plays with a nasty temperament. Yep. From his quote, when I go out there, I'm a different person. I'm the most physical person out there.
I see it. I watched it. Yep. I agree.
I mean, that screams like Jason Light selection to me too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just make them better immediately and in the future. Okay. 16 and the Cleveland Browns. we keep coming back to it. Early on, we were projecting Monroe Freeling to them at what, 6th overall? It might happen, but you can also trade back or move up from 24 into the spot. And it's like a perfect placement for Monroe Freeling, who I think a lot of people will have as the left tackle. I think Mike Tice did in the show with Nate Tice.
The more I just think about Monroe Freeling, like, to me, you can draft him as high as you want. Like, left tackles are hard to find, and he's got every athletic trait possible. The character is off the charts. He improved from week 1 to the last couple of games. He's battle tested against the top guys in the class, and I think he has like a lot of toughness on top of that too. So like, I think his upside, like, the comp is always Colton Miller because like took a little bit of time for him. I think that Monroe Freeling's just got like more to him than like Colton Miller. And how valuable is Colton Miller? Just plug and play left tackle for a decade. That's what the Browns need.
Yeah. Just to rewind real quick, because I should have brought this up. O-line is a priority for the Ravens. This goes back to our 14th overall and Vega being mocked there so often. I really try to find people on Twitter who understand their team at a really high level and understand the trends and the team building and listen to all the press conferences. ILLM Alec. If you're not following him, he knows the Ravens like the back of his hand.
Yep.
And he believes that the Ravens are going to battle that out at 2 guard spots between 3 players, and they aren't going to spend a first-round pick on them. Now, is that a perfect locked-in-stone prediction? No, it's not. But he believes Andrew Voorhees, Emory Jones, and bring back John Simpson. 2 of those 3 guys are going to start. And so he just simply doesn't believe a single-use offensive lineman is going to be the pick at 14 overall, excuse me.
Fair enough.
Okay. So we go back to the Browns and we give them another offensive lineman in Monroe Freeling. Detroit at 17. We're not getting fancy here. This is just Caden Proctor written all over it.
There we go. Yeah, it just everything lines up here.
Yeah, I mean, big dude, moving you off the ball. Weight seems under control. And then he fits in this offense. Just move people, move them. And that can be left tackle or right tackle or something else. All right. Now here we get to 18. And Hayden, this is why I don't have Dylan Thieneman going to the Minnesota Vikings.
You cheater.
I know they have James Pierre and I know they have Isaiah Rodgers, but this could be different. That Mansour Delane is still on the board. Maybe it happens. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe I'm the first one to mock him sliding down to 18. But if he's here, I could easily see head coach and GM Kevin O'Connell saying, oh, yeah, that's a pretty easy selection for us to make.
So on like the top right here, you can see the availability odds past certain picks. He gets to pass pick 12 3% of the time. So you're living on an edge here, but shit happens. It's the NFL draft. So
yeah.
Who knows?
Or it happens more often when someone does it first. All right. Mansour Delane. I'm not saying he's going to fall this far, but if you had to ask me right now who the first corner is off the board, I think I'm taking Jermod McCoy.
Fair enough.
19 and the Carolina Panthers. I mean, I went back and forth here a ton. I keep saying, and I'm getting aggregated for this, which I totally appreciate, that it's most likely going to be a wide receiver or an offensive tackle. I still think that, but the one name that might pop that bubble is Dylan Thieneman. Immediately comes in and changes how you can play defense. I mean, Oregon, he was basically a linebacker in a 3-3-5, filled it, did it at a high level. Then you go back to his Purdue tape, and he is single high, roaming sideline to sideline, picking off passes. And then like that pairing with Trevon Moehrig gets me super amped too. I mean, it really is perfect. But then you can kind of interchange them and really spice up and shake up your defense, especially the 2 outside corners like Mike Jackson and JC Horn.
Yeah, he's as like close to like a perfect prospect at safety as you get. He's a beyond freak athlete. The football smarts are there. He's played in multiple schemes. Like, this is what a top 20 pick at safety looks like. It doesn't happen all the time, but I mean, he's drawn up in the lap.
Yep. I love it. Absolutely love it. I would also love Casey Concepcion, but they have both options. Pretty dang good. All right. Number 20, and this is the Dallas Cowboys. I also have them taking Keldrick Falk after selecting Sonny Styles at number 7. This defense, 270, 285 pounds. I'm not exactly sure what he's going to be, but he's also 21 years of age, and then kind of mold him into what they want to. So there is no perfect fit as a true edge rusher. And I almost, Hayden, went through the scenario of, okay, what if the Panthers select Casey Concepcion in 19, what 20, then Dylan Thieneman? I think that would line up too.
Yes. Yeah. I think this is the range for these guys. Keldrick Falk could play inside too. They lose Osia Digizua. They do need some depth at defensive tackle. I'm not saying that he's a defensive tackle, but
we can take like Kenny Clark off the field and then move him inside.
Passing situations, yes.
Right. And let's also remember Ezra Raku finished the season with an injury. Rashawn Gary has not been the beacon of health during his time with the Green Bay Packers. So he's not exactly of that type, but just adding more juice up front. I really believe everything down the spine of this defense, which includes the edges, is what's going to get attacked.
Yep.
21 and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Hayden, I think they might be done with Broderick Jones.
It's possible.
If you investigate who they're bringing in for visits, and we still haven't gotten a Hanachor or Blake Miller or some of these others, I think you're going to see more and more offensive tackle visits here. I think it's going to maybe come out that Broderick Jones was like a Mike Tomlin guy. But I have them taking here Blake Miller. I know it might be early for some, but we're also talking, and by the way, Steelers passed a 4-year starter, a dude that just played football at a high level over and over and over again. And then you move Faltano to left tackle where he played in college.
He played there.
And that's just more natural here.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I do think this is the range for Blake Miller. I think the 20s. I think anything earlier than that, I don't think his tape justifies it, but he's in this class. I think he's a round 1 guy.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to be paying attention to it as we go along, but I wouldn't be surprised in this final few days or maybe more reports of, hey, this player has visited X, Y, and Z. If we get some real offensive tackle stuff. Now, the other name I would throw out there for the Steelers is Emmanuel McNeil-Warren.
Yep.
But we're going to go with Blake Miller here.
I like it.
All right, 22. He's on the board. He fills it perfectly. This is going to be Malachi Lawrence. We've talked about this ad nauseum, but a 1-to-1, albeit not immediately going to be in a 10-sack guy maybe, but Odafe Owe and just what he brought from a juice standpoint and a chase down standpoint of what Odafe Owe did for this team.
I believe you click my scouting report, my comp is literally Odafe Owe as one of them. So,
and go and tune in tomorrow. Hayden and John Ledyard are on the program outlining the best pass rushers in this class. All right, that brings us to 23. I am not going to fix it if it's not broken. Max Ihanacher or Ihanacher or Ianacher or however you want to say it. He joins this non-Jeff Stoutland-led offensive line operation. But as we know, even Howie Stoutland has rubbed off on him where they want something unique, something different. And that's not just about offensive linemen. It's about really any position. It goes to the Jordan Davises of the world, Cooper DeJean, all that type of stuff. Devontae Smith being that physical despite, his thin frame. They want to look for players that break the mold. And I would say Ihanacher breaks the mold.
Yeah, in every single way. I mean, and maybe you get Jeff Stoutland back. He sees the pick. He's like, I got to get back into the lab here and coach him up.
I mean, I feel like 23 might be like the latest he's on the board. I know a lot of people have been, and he's 37th in consensus rankings. That has to change.
Yeah, I think he will go round 1. There's not that many right tackle needs kind of in this area. Maybe the Lions on how they treat Penei Sewell, but a lot of right tackle needs.
Well,
in the
we
20s.
just brought the Steelers.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, that's an underrated one. I hadn't really thought about that one. But I think a lot of teams in the 20s where he's not going to make it through all of them.
Yeah. All right, Cleveland Browns back at 24. Again, at 16, they took Monroe Freeling, and they get one of the best receivers in this class at Casey Concepcion at 24. Now, this kind of breaks my heart from a Casey Concepcion guy because now he has to catch passes from Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders for a season. But I would love for them to build the wide receiver room around him. And I think he's that capable of talent. I know a lot of people hear his name and say he can't catch and his drop rate and all that stuff. I implore you to go watch him. And if you do, really in depth, I think the first thing that comes out of your mind is he runs a full route tree. He separates at every level of the field. You have to be concerned about his speed defensively on every single snap. And then he's a menace after the catch too.
Yep. Yeah. I hope he doesn't go to the Browns for those reasons.
Yeah. As Colin says in the chat, Casey just got sent to Alcatraz.
Alcatraz.
See, Brett, I got you, my man. I've got you. All right. Casey Concepcion is a Cleveland Brown, sadly. Chicago Bears at pick 25. I also have them taking Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. Like,
Okay.
Again, we went through the Caleb Banks conversation. I think it was last week we talked about with the Chargers too. It just feels like oftentimes you see like a morsel here or there of some level of positivity if a guy with maybe some questions around his profile is going to go in round one. And there hasn't been like a single positive note about Caleb Banks at this point. And in fact, I think people are just moving him down further and further.
Well, he has stress fractures in both of his feet, and he's 330 pounds. So like that's not a good equation.
Yeah. All right. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren at 25. And that brings us to the Buffalo Bills at 26. A Buffalo Bills team who had 2 free agents along the interior of their offensive line. They brought one back in Connor McGovern at center. And that means they lost their starting left guard. And so Chase Pasantis is going to be my pick for the Buffalo Bills at 26 overall. 43rd is, I think, too far down for consensus. And again, I took him at plus 1,000 to be a first round pick, and I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, right now we have Emmanuel Pregnon ranked ahead in consensus rankings. I think that's just wrong. I think it'll be Chase Pasantis ahead.
Yeah, these 2%ers connecting Buffalo Bills.
Ball.
It just makes so much like when you have a difficulty with a spot and like the defensive line and interior might not fit it 1-to-1, it can just be immediately an interior offensive line because those guys get zero buzz. And especially a guy who has a lot of snaps at that spot that they immediately need to fill a need. Like the more I think about Pasantis to the Bills at 26, the more I think it's like, I might just put it in pen right now.
Okay. All right. I like it.
Next, 27 and the San Francisco 49ers. I have them taking Omar Cooper Jr. I do not agree with the Deebo Samuel comparisons, namely because they're about 20 pounds difference.
It's a big difference.
But he, I think, does bring something different to the table that they don't have. Like, we know what Mike Evans is going to do. Win the dark arts down the field, outside the numbers, and also over the middle of the field, right? Ricky Pearsall, when he is at his best on this 49ers roster, he is, the motion man. He can get some free releases. And like you go back to his rookie season when he had moments of health, when he came back from, the gunshot, he had some massive games against like the Detroit Lions on these big downfield patterns. And that's what he did at Florida too.
Cross your corner.
And then now you can have Omar Cooper Jr., who can also kind of be in these stacks, in these sets with Ricky Pearsall or Mike Evans, and then get the football in his hands in a bunch of creative ways because he definitely is a weapon with that too.
Especially like as George Kittle and CMC kind of age out or injury out, you're going to need somebody in the kind of manufactured touch department. They still don't have one long term.
If Omar Cooper Jr. was the wide receiver 2 off the board, would that shock you?
Yes. I think that's going too far. I mean, he didn't even like outproduce Elijah Surratt. Like, I don't think he's going to be the second player in the entire draft. That seems crazy.
I mean, we can all stack, and you and I have stacked them differently than a lot of people out there, but I really like Omar Cooper Jr. I don't think he should go ahead of Jordan Tyson and Casey Concepcion and obviously Carnell Tate and Mekhi Lemon on top of that.
Yeah, and then like Denzel Boston, if you need an X receiver, like he can go ahead.
Total opposites.
Yep.
Yeah. I agree with you. All right. 28 and the Houston Texans. I'm back with interior offensive line here.
Okay.
And I'm going with Keelan Rutledge.
Whoa.
Now, you've heard mentions recently of, Basantis and Keelan Rutledge. Look out for one of them going in round 1. How about if they both go in round 1? We go over. So how many offensive line would this be? Keelan Rutledge, Chase Pasantis, Max Ihenacher, Blake Miller, Caden Proctor, Monroe Freeling, Vega, Spencer Fano,
Francis,
and then Francis Maunoa. So that would be 9 offensive linemen in round 1.
That checks out. Like that's what this draft class should be.
Yeah, I agree that checks out.
We haven't even said Caleb Loma yet, and I didn't have him in my mock draft either. I think there's some like physicality concerns with Caleb Lomu. That might make him more like a Eontae Ursery, like round 2 type of guy, but we'll see.
Yeah. See, Colin knows what's up. And I've been tweeting these out as soon as I take them because the odds change quickly. On April 1st, over 7.5 offensive linemen in round 1 was minus 120.
Yep.
So I'm sure that I think that's down to like minus 250 at this point. So it has changed quite a bit. Okay. So Keelan Rutledge is the pick there. And look, I mean, the Houston Texans, like we know that they made some re-signings in terms of Ed Ingram at right guard. But if you look at the Wyatt Teller deal, I understand that he has started games in his past, but he has been injured. He's
old.
Is on the wrong side of 30, and it's like a 1-year deal, you know? Yeah. So you can basically keep it how it is. You can have Ursery left tackle, then Keelan Rutledge, then however you want it center between like Jake Andrews and Evan Brown and Jarrett Patterson and whoever else. Then Ed Ingram at right guard, and then Braden Smith at right tackle.
Not great, but it's getting there. They're trying.
It's a lot better than it has been.
They're changing it at least.
Okay, Kansas City Chiefs, they took Ruben Bain at number 9. I have them taking Chris Johnson here.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's what I had too.
They lost both their starting corners. It really is that simple.
It is.
Both to the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, everything about the Chris Johnson profile to me is like late round 1 guy. Like he didn't go to the big school, but other than that, like it's hard to find like very clear concerns with him. So yeah, 4'4", 40, 38-inch vertical. He's got decent size to him too. Yeah, I thought his instincts and just playing in control was just all there for Chris Johnson.
Yeah. Now it could be Colton Hood. And then if you look at offensive tackles, because I know you took one early, it's kind of just Caleb Lomu left. He only played left tackle at Utah. I know Fran mentioned it on the program that Utah kind of felt like he was a left tackle only. Yeah. And so that wouldn't really fit here among their offensive line needs.
No, yeah, I think it would be like receiver, perhaps like a Denzel Boston, but I think would be in play. Just kind of looking at this.
Yeah, but like I mean, when have the Chiefs had like a Denzel Boston type over the last few years? You know?
Yeah, it's very true.
All right, Chris Johnson's the pick at 29. 30 to the Miami Dolphins. This is where I have TJ Parker. And again, I never feel great when I click TJ Parker's name, but they need just solid opposite Chop Robinson right now.
And big.
You know?
They need big.
And big. Yeah. Like Chop's second half of his rookie season he was a menace. And I kept bringing up explosive, but then just hasn't happened. And then, you know, opposite him, it's like Robert Beal or Josh Uche or David Ajabo. Like they have to have another starter at a lot of spots, but especially at their second edge.
Yeah, and they need an edge setter. That's what TJ Parker is.
And while people might say, well, what about Mesidor? Is Mesidor on that same path as the Miami Dolphins are at this point? Like, again, 25 years old as a rookie and taking him at 30th overall. Maybe.
No, I think Parker makes more sense for Miami.
All right, 31 and the New England Patriots. Again, I feel like a tough team. All their needs are kind of more like round 2.
Yeah.
And namely, I'm pointing at tight end.
Mm-hmm.
But when I go to edge and I think of Mike Vrabel, like he has Coach Harold Landry, he has Coach Vic Beasley. Last year they had a short arm guy too. Maybe he really likes just like Cassius Howell's tape and his bend and all that stuff. Now Elliott Wolf has his thresholds from Green Bay, so he might have to talk him into it or shove him to a locker for 5 minutes as he makes the pick. But I can see Cassius Howell being a coaching staff favorite.
Yeah, I can see this one too. He's going to be a part-timer, but he really can turn that corner and get off the ball really quickly. And he was very productive. So I get it doesn't look pretty, but on tape, he's just is so explosive that I wouldn't be surprised if, this is the Chop Robinson range. I don't think he's quite as good as Chop Robinson, but they're not that dissimilar. And this is the range that these guys typically go in.
Yeah. All right. Cassius Howell. And we close out with the Seattle Seahawks. And this one, again, I mentioned it, that they've lost all their corners. Tariq Woolen played the most snaps on their defensive side of the ball last year. So they have to replace that. And I'll just go Colton Hood here.
Yeah, I really like Colton Hood's tape. He's a little bit aggressive, but he's a good athlete. And he was a really solid player for them.
I'm kind of talking myself though into John Schneider just being
Pawns.
like, we want a bunch of dogs and just play
But
Dino out there.
I mean, that's really light. And if they're playing Witherspoon outside too, and he's kind of like was billed as a nickel guy. Now I love Witherspoon, but like your two outside guys is Witherspoon and Pawns. Like I know you got Eman Ward
With Eman Ward, like
yeah,
it all balances out.
Right. But, I mean, your two outside corners are teeny tiny at that point. I like Pawns. Can I like Pawns in round 2? Am I allowed to do that?
No, you either love him or you hate him.
Right.
It's that simple. Wow. Someone took Colton Hood 9th overall. Look at that. All right. We'll close this one out. Submit. So the big headliner is obviously the 2 trades with the Jets moving up from 16 up to 6. Didn't have to give up that much. 33, 179, and 16 overall. And then obviously the Cowboys and the Commanders trade. Anything that you saw about this mock that you want to call attention to?
Well, all the purple is just things that don't happen very often. So Jordan Tyson going in the top 10 is rare. Jermod McCoy going in the top 10 is rare. And then obviously we both agreed on Besantis, Chris Johnson, Maxi Anotcher, all going there. But Kalen Rutledge is extremely rare going into round 1. So the purple on these are supposed to grab your attention, and obviously the trades. And then
only a 72 unique rating. I thought it'd be like a 99 up there with some of those shouts that I made.
Of all the things I've been working on with this website, these 3 numbers at the top are extremely low priority to me. So maybe I need to go readjust the model there. But there's some bugs I got to work on. I got to get the trade stuff. So I'm tinkering with this website every single day, but it's free. And I think there will be prizes soon enough with it. So go test it out. Go share your mock drafts. Let's grow this website. We didn't even click over to like the data on the website. There's data on every single one of these draft picks, consensus rankings, odds that these guys go in round 1 based off of your mock drafts. You can create your own big board, and then all my scouting reports, all the videos and stuff. So there's a lot going on this website. So click through it.
Only thing I'll add is 9 offensive linemen in round 1, and that doesn't even include Caleb Lomu. And so sub out Rutledge for Lomu if you want to, or it can just be 8. And I think 8 seems very likely at this point. And again, what I can see is over under 7.5. If you take the over of that on the offensive lineman, that's minus 195. Now, that's not the best odds. That wasn't the minus 120 that I got, but still, that feels pretty dang good with what I am hearing about this class, that we want to hit doubles. We want starters for 5 years, blah, blah, blah. And that fitting in with a bunch of these teams' needs along the offensive line.
Cool. Yeah. In the chat or in the comments after this video, whose mock draft was better? I'd love to know.
Let us know. Let us know in the comments down below. Again, we have a lot more coming up this week. Tomorrow, show with Hayden and John Ledyard from the Read Optional, along with Ollie Connolly. I keep saying Colony. Again, that show's tomorrow on Tuesday. We have a running back ranking show here on Wednesday. And then Dane Brugler from The Beast, my longtime friend, joins on Thursday. What a week we have.
Packed week. Yeah, I should have all top 100 written reports up by the end of the week, and then big mock draft episodes next week. Should be a lot of fun.
Will, thank you for the shout. Jackie, great episode as always. Appreciate it. Yeah, we'll do this
more live.
Definitely the night before the draft, because we both submit our mocks as well.
Yep. Awesome.
All right. There it is. Everyone, shout out to you. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button. We'll talk to you next time. See ya.